Well, thank you everyone for joining us for our April office hours. My name is Bakari Height, Transit Equity Organizer with Labor Network for Sustainability, and we thank you for joining us on this rainy day. I don't know what's happening wherever you are, but uh, it seems like spring is sprouted in some places. I know where exactly I came from last week, it was still winter, and y'all will see pictures of that. But hope everyone's doing well. And if you're not familiar with our office hours, the office hours is just our informal conversations where we get to open up more time for you all to just talk about your projects and your advocacy work that you have going on in your locality, as well as with us discussing pertinent topics related to transit. There's a lot going on right now, and especially a lot going on with what money is coming down the pipeline federally, as well as what's going on within each individual cities around North America. So we definitely want to get to that. And also, I've had a really lovely vacation within the past week where I went to the West Coast. I went to the Bay Area, so I ran around San Francisco, I ran around Oakland, and then my friend and I took a drive up the 101 up the California coast and the Oregon coast, and we saw like so many beautiful, beautiful landscaping and just forestry, and we went to the redwoods, and it was beautiful. And we even went through some little small towns in Oregon. Like, y'all are sleeping on the rest of the country if y'all have not seen this part of the country. It is beautiful, beautiful. And we went to where he went to school in Oregon.
What's that highway that you take up the coast? That y'all took that highway? What's the coastal highway in California?
101.
Yeah, that's the highway you guys took.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I've heard how beautiful it is.
It was breathtaking. Like I've literally, there's a picture I didn't put into the slideshow, but there's a picture of me touching a redwood tree, and those trees are huge. Like some of them are like hollowed open to where you literally could just sit in there and just like sit down and read a book. And I wanted to. I didn't bring a book, but
it's one like that over at the Cascade Nature Preserve.
Yeah, like it's so beautiful. But problem was it was cold. It was like that. They're still in winter over there. One day it was raining, and the next day it was snowing.
Global warming.
Well, I think this is how they were, but yeah, like we went up to Eugene where he went to school at University of Oregon, and I ran around there. And then we ended in Portland, and then we flew back. But yeah, I got a couple of pictures that I'd like to show y'all, and just kind of some best practices for transit organizing and some things that you should be watching out as far as what you're advocating for, some best practices, some worst practices. So we'll get to that. But first, I wanted to open up and see if anyone had any announcements as far as their campaigns and what you're doing in your locality, and wanted to open the floor to see if anyone had any. So Sheila, I know you had some stuff to report, so I wanted to give you the floor to see if you wanted to speak on it.
Thank you so much for creating this space. Yeah, we had some activity here in April. I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the last time we've seen passenger trains here was back in December of 1990. And so we're in the Midwest. We're the second largest city in the state. And so I believe it was April 17th, 18th, one of those dates. There was a press conference here in Fort Wayne. There was a grant opportunity that the city applied for. So they're trying to bring back the trains here in Fort Wayne. Like I say, it's been more than 30 years since we've had passenger rail. And so Jeff Paddock is the councilman for the 5th District, and he's been advocating to bring back Amtrak. And so the grant, it was an announcement with the Midwest Connect Passenger Rail Corridor is the space that they're calling this. That's basically from Chicago to Pittsburgh, with Fort Wayne being one of the destinations that it would run through. And so this is a competitive grant. They have backing of the state. The governor And so the Federal Rail Administration, I'm finding out more about those folks. They were here. We had folks that came in from Columbus. They're part of one of the folks that also applied for this funding. And so, yeah, we're hoping to get a piece of that pie so that we can take advantage of some of the federal infrastructure money and to come up with a plan. There's like $66 billion for rail lines that's out there. And I'm just hoping that we bring Baker Street back to life. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. That is such a blessing. And especially because that's such a really huge rail corridor. Like you talking about Chicago to Pittsburgh, that's huge. And especially just thinking about how much it's going to open you all up to that corridor and like travel and like it, especially like if you all wanted to like open it up for tourism, of how important that would be. So that's amazing. Definitely let us know if you need any support on that, if you need any people to just kind of stand with you. And that's essentially what we want to do within the next couple of years with the Transit Equity Network, is we want to be able to deploy folks out to help all of your organizing efforts, because what's good for us is also good for the remainder of the country, because that opens up new opportunities for travel, and especially like if you're not near a major airport, because that could really cut off a lot of your mobility from getting from point A to point B. So that's absolute blessing. Shout out to you, Sheila, and everyone else in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's huge.
And one other thing I want to add on, Bakari, I do apologize. CityLink is our bus, our public transportation, and they are trying to take advantage of the bipartisan infrastructure, and they're looking at the low and zero emission bus. There's some funding that's out there. So John Metzinger is the CEO of CityLink. And so he'll be going to DC to try to get some of those dollars to come back into Allen County. They currently have a survey that's online, and folks need to take advantage of sharing their story. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and definitely like if any of your agencies are talking about or even thinking about getting any kind of zero emission buses, please go for that money. And that really sets it up for the systems, especially what I'll go through with the and with some of the slides that I'll have. It really helps like just kind of planning for the future. You see all these buses that talk about natural clean gas. It's still gas at the end of the day. Like you really got to focus on the future. So that's big. But thanks to everyone coming in right now. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Bossoff. Good to see you all. Wonderful. Well, anyone else have any? Aziz, yes, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So I'm in Connecticut with the Connecticut Roundtable Climate and Jobs. We just lost our free transit, public transit in Connecticut. We tried really hard to save it. It wasn't going to happen here. We've started a campaign to reinstate it. It's going to take a little bit of time, but there's a lot of different organizations behind this. So we've been working pretty hard, doing bus ads and that sort of thing. We ran up a little bit against it with the ATU in Connecticut because their drivers were a little concerned about the free transit and their safety. And so we're expanding that beyond that, recognizing that safety for the drivers is a huge issue. And let's expand it and not just attach it to free fares, but let's make sure that, even if you are doing, you have to pay fares, that the drivers are safe, and find different ways and all ways possible just to give the drivers some safety. So there's that. And then the other piece that I just heard yesterday, and I'm not entirely certain what the result of this is. I live along what's called the Connecticut shoreline. which has a shoreline a shoreline train route that goes from New Haven to New London. After COVID, their ridership declined to just a 60% level, and it appears that the state wants to cut their the schedule by 40%, and not fund the shoreline train as it had in the past. We're beginning to look into that. We just heard that yesterday, and we're trying to save that and look to possibly even expand it to go from New Haven to Providence, Rhode Island. So there's that piece in there. On a roundtable, Connecticut Roundtable Climate and Job side, we're looking to, we do a lot of workforce development with the building trades and the AFL in Connecticut. They are putting out many apprentices. And our concern has always been that you can train as many apprentices as you want, but if you can't get them to jobs, if they have to take public transportation, it takes them 4 hours to get from place to place. So we're looking for different transportation alternatives, something similar to like shared drive situations, leased cars that are coming off lease out of the state government. The utility Eversource is also interested in joining in with us. We have a little bit of seed money to start this. So hopefully by the next quarter of this year, we'll have a pilot project beginning to shape up, and we'll report out. And that's from Connecticut.
Thank you, Aziz. Yeah, that's really huge as far as them cutting that service. That's really disappointing, and especially like with me running through there, it seems like Connecticut to me seems like a huge bedroom community of New York City. So like all of those towns like look like I'll pass through them and we'll be like way between New Haven and Bridgeport. You usually see like all these commuter towns. So like it's really unfortunate of them trying to cut that service, but I guess that's, you know, just kind of the effects of the impending fiscal cliff. So yeah, definitely let us know if you need any assistance, and especially with linking up with the building trades and a lot of the AT leadership. That's something that we've been trying to tap in a little bit more with, and especially with the folks that we do know in the state of Connecticut. So yeah, definitely let us know if we can help, and we can put that out because we got folks from LNS in Connecticut, so we can definitely plug into that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely with the connection from New Haven to Providence, because I think that's going to be a new fast growing area, and especially with that being one of the choke points or one of the pain points, excuse me, of what could be high-speed rail in the Northeast, going through those swamps and those protected wildlands. So more on that later, because like I said before, I'm currently on this conference with Railroad Users Network, and it's a lot of advocates in the Northeast for passenger rail. But yeah, it's going to be a huge point to see like how we're going to get to this next point of not only short haul but long haul passenger rail. But that's really going to be big for that. Wonderful. Welcome, Akshay. Good to see you. Anyone else have any reports from their organization or from their locale?
I just saying, hey, I have just on the mend with from having corona, so I'm still masking in the apartment because my roommate's trying to make sure I'm not getting my roommate sick. Just from Cleveland, we've been ideally trying to set up some transit levy, a transit ballot measure. We have two riders who've been appointed to the board of our agency, and ideally we'll be able to get some more both transparency as well as will and willpower for them to expand our transit funding. Obviously, we have a lot of federal money to work with, and the agency is probably talking to us as riders and organizers more than they have been willing to in the past. I think We've definitely functioned as their like de facto PR side and marketing side in the past, but now it feels like they are paying a little more attention to the fact that we've had organized base and they may need us for getting projects pushed through. So yeah, some interesting next steps that we've had in Cleveland, and also excited to hear about what's been going on around the Horn.
Absolutely. Thank you, Akshay. And hopefully, please both feel better. I know how difficult that is. But yeah, that's a good look on y'all getting your members into the transit board. That's a good tip for everyone. Research your transit boards to see how you can get on, because a lot of these seats are appointed and sometimes appointed by the head of the transit agency, which is weird because I found that out here in Maryland, that the general manager appoints some of the board seats, which is wild to me, but sure. But yeah, definitely look into that because that does give a lot of transparency. Like as Akshay said, like you can get a lot more of people to just kind of make sure and watchdog over a lot of these folks to make sure that they're actually spending the money well worth to a lot of the system, and especially if the system is deteriorating in some places. So that's good for y'all, and definitely, like I said, let us know. And also let me know because one of the folks here in Baltimore wanted to reach out to you all to just kind of study some of the transits y'all had, more specifically the BRT line along Euclid. So let me know if that's a possibility of bringing some folks up and meeting with some of the RTA folks. All right, I have Sarah, then I have Basov. Sarah, are you there? Sarah.
Unmute.
Okay, there you
Sorry. Sorry. Okay, let me give her this video. The light's bad. So I want to say hello from New York, and I feel like I missed the March hours, and we had an amazing event on March 18th, which was combining like Women's History Month and transit equity. We had a elder storyteller who did a whole thing about this woman, Elizabeth, oh my goodness, now I'm blanking, Jennings, who forced the streetcars in New York City in the 1850s to not have, colored and white cars. And then she went on to another one, and then she went on to, who was part of the Hudson River lines, and then she went on to Rosa Parks, of course. And we have that one video, and just some final editing is happening with that, but maybe it would be useful for other people, to liven things up and make things also like kid friendly, because that's the way they do, these storytellers make it a lot of fun at the same time that they're talking about serious things. And our organization, Parents to Improve School Transportation, in that event, we gave out some certificates of appreciation, but we also received one from the Office of the Public Advocate, which is a position that I think maybe just New York and a couple other places have. But they really are the third in line from the mayor, if anything happens to the mayor. So, it's a pretty powerful office, and it was good to get that kind of recognition for fighting for safe, reliable school buses and to reverse the shortage of drivers. What I will try to have by the next time we speak is an update about the contract bargaining that the local ATU 1181 has with not all of the companies, but a big lion's share, you know, of that is that labor arrangement is up for bargaining now through, I guess, June. And then in terms of our campaign to put a school bus bill of rights on the ballot and have like not just, you know, one face from the consumer or the provider in the management of the service of school transportation, but to really have an empowered panel that, you know, weighs in on decisions or vetoes decisions that are not helpful to the community. So we found that we didn't have, you know, all of the wording just ready in time to do all of the petitioning that we have to do. It's prohibitive. We need tens of thousands of signatures between January and June. So we're resetting for 2024, and hopefully it will, the silver lining is that more people vote because it's an election year, you know, nationally. Well, I think those are the highlights. We've also had some community boards and parent councils, education councils that are elected by parents and PTAs to come out with resolutions about pupil transportation, both for those who ride the yellow buses and also the question of the subway metro card that gets kids on the bus. So the subway, you know, the public city transit system, it is limited to the weekdays, and it's, you know, the hours are limited and the number of swipes, as they say, the number of rides you can take is limited. And we need for those older students who can get around by themselves to be able to actually go to Saturday programs and internships and, you know, all of those things that you're supposed to get your well-rounded diploma and apply for college and become ready for real life. Only those who can be, you know, plunking down 550 to go somewhere and back are going to do that, you know, and that's not fair. So that's part of the transit equity, and that's part of the student transportation justice issue here. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And yeah, that's really important for student passes because it can't just be limited to the weekday and assuming that everyone, like, and all the students travel on the weekday. Like, a lot of weekend programs happen, especially within this capacity. So that's good that you all are still putting on that. And definitely plug in the video, because I would love to add it to our YouTube page for folks to look up to, which, if you've not subscribed to our YouTube page, Transit Equity Network, please do. We will be uploading this video as well as other videos, as well as Transit Equity Day, up to the YouTube page. We're going to be putting a lot more content on there, and especially from a lot of my travels and our upcoming webinar series, which I will talk about soon. But thank you. Boss off, then we have Sherry.
Okay, great. So I have a little report, but also I have a question for Sarah, which I'll hold until, you know, after my report. So you all heard the good news a while back. I may have first talked about this in December or January, that we won a real big deal, you know, free buses in Washington, D.C. starting on July 1st. Now, with the rail, with Metro Rail, what they said was they are going to study the possibility of essentially a payment of $100 a month to every Metro card holder in DC, and you need a Metro card to ride the system. So it's universal. Everyone who uses it has a card, and they will get $100 deposited, or there's a study to see if it's feasible to get $100 deposited on the car. So effectively, people in DC will be riding the Metro Rail for free as well, unless it so happens they use it so frequently that it's more than $100 a month, but that's unlikely. But in a sort of bad news development, which shows how these things play out politically. So WMATA itself and the Metro Transit Police have. So first of all, they started this very aggressive campaign of ads to say that if you're found, jumping the turnstile, you will get fined, and fines are at least blah blah blah, could be higher. Really threatening sounding ads all over Metro Rail. Now they are asking the city for more funding to enforce fare evasion. So it's almost like they are, even as council is exploring the possibility of subsidizing Metro Rail fares for DC residents, not applicable to all of WMATA's jurisdiction, but only within the District of Columbia. The Metro Authority themselves and the cops want to double down on fare evasion enforcement, and it almost like they're trying to create a fact on the ground ahead of anything that City Council does, and it also shows how our transit justice issues so often intersect with issues of over policing and abolition. So yeah, I'll keep updating all of y'all on developments on this. And quick question for Sarah. You mentioned an Office of Public Advocate or something. Is that for city government in general, or is that specifically for the school bus system? Because if it's the latter, it's almost a recognition that school buses are a public utility. Because pretty much most states have something equivalent to an Office of Public Advocate that advocates against utility rate increase proposals, for example, at the Public Utility Commission.
It's a little different. Bakari, do you want me to answer this right away?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so without giving a whole civics lesson, because I just, found out about it since we've been working with PIS, to be honest. The job of this office is to make sure that all the city agencies are doing what the city charter defines as their role and are meeting the legal, requirements that all the so that's another thing that's strange about New York. It's a charter, and it goes back to that's what we have to change in order to have a school bus bill of rights. Unfortunately, school busing is not treated as a public service in the sense that they are subcontracting out, they're contracting out to, dozens of different private vendors. And some of them are from huge conglomerates, or, that behind the scenes, they're owned by big equity firms overseas or whatever. And some of them are, maybe a little bit more mom and pop, or they started out that way. So we do still have an uphill battle. There was a suggestion once by a civil rights lawyer we worked with, that the city should have a liaison for school transportation for busing who was independent of the Department of Education. This Office of the Public Advocate, they deal with, many different things across the community, and they put some legislation about different things like maternal health for Black women, and all kinds of different things. Um, but we never got our liaison, and we do, when people complain to us about a really serious situation, that there's been no bus for 3 weeks or whatever, um, we recommend that they call or email this Office of the Public Advocate, because there's a lot of people working there who, will advocate with all of the agencies and make them nervous that they're going to get in trouble for not doing uh, what they're supposed to do by law. So I hope that answers your question, and I'll cut it for time.
Absolutely, thank you. Any more questions or comments for this topic?
I have
Also-
a question for Sarah. Sarah, thank you for giving us that update. My question is, what is the student fare? Is the student fare free or is it reduced rate? And also, what is your senior fare? Seniors and those with disability, is it free or is it a reduced fare rate during the week?
Mhm. Okay, the student rate, it depends how far away you live. They have what they call a full fare, meaning it's all paid for in the Metro card. My day was a bus pass, right? And 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 if you live more close, it's half off. There is an exception. Students with a disability, recognized in an IEP, all are supposed to get a full fare if they are not taking the bus. The yellow bus. You're not allowed to really have both. And then the other piece of it is that families in temporary housing, um, wi- it was limited to kindergarten through 6 or pre-K through 6, but that's just been expanded where the parent of any child who needs to get to a school that's not walking distance from, the shelter, um, can accompany their child with this Metro card, but they have to know it, and the people at the shelter have to know it, and they got to know how to order, or the people at the school have to order these things, and it's not, you know. So there's actually, for the disabled and the seniors, there's also a half fare. You just have to do a fair amount of paperwork. And now they're converting to this Omni, which you can pay with your phone or a credit card or a special Omni card. It's not, it's phasing in. But one of the last groups that they want to phase in, probably the last group that they intend to phase in, are the students, when in reality, the students, when they need to go to a Saturday program, if the school gets it together, they can they can give them a card on Friday that will give them 2 rides on Saturday. But that's a big headache and a lot of tracking and logistics for the overworked staff at the school. So the Omni thing would be more convenient for them. So that's one of the demands that one of our community boards in Manhattan put into their resolution, like get the young people onto that. And now, Ms. Sherry, there's a thing they call Fair Fares, FAIR, which is supposed to give you a half when you can show income-based need for that. Yeah, but it's high. And to the point of the previous speaker, we also have heavy enforcement of fare evasion. And it's the last time I was on the meeting, I remember Bakari saying that maybe something this network could do a program about would-be transit and policing. This was one of the big issues when the students don't get their Metro cards delivered on time, is that are they going to take a chance of running into a confrontation with transit police, or are they going to just stay home? And neither of those choices are good. So, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to just respond real quickly. First of all, that's way too complicated for the average person to
okay.
access. Number one, I'm
Mhm.
talking about as far as what the policies are. We
Okay.
run into that all the time. The policies are very confusing. Most of the people that need it may not be literate, may not have access to get to the documents, yada, yada, yada. Also, in regard to fare evasion, I agree. Fare evaders are being criminalized. I think there should be some type of policy all across the nation, because we're talking about safety. There should be some kind of policy in place that allows for people who are students who have lost their cars, who yada, 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 where they can, something can happen at the point of purchase or at the gate where they can get in without being considered felons or get misdemeanors or whatever the case may be, because people are actually just trying to go about their lives. However, I've seen here in Atlanta and have heard across the country that the biggest issue that decent people use to not have free fares is the safety issue. And I think Bakari will remember here in Atlanta when MARTA had a free fare day. I mean, it was just rampant chaos. The drivers were not safe. The riders were not safe. People were just, oh, I mean, they were just acting crazy, acting stupid. And it was just not safe being on that day because of just a few bad actors who were just running in and doing stuff. So when you have to stop at the gate to pay, it's unfortunate, but it's a fact. That is a level of safety or security. So I don't know how to, I mean, I don't have the answer. The reason why we're here is so we can brainstorm, so we can give the information to our policymakers to make it safe, reliable, and easy to access. Right now, the barriers to access for those that really need it are very prohibitive and frustrating. So I can see somebody one day saying, you know, instead of me going down 2 hours to do this, I'll just jump over to Fairgate or whatever the case may be, knowing that it could change their lives and make them a felon or whatever the penalty is in a lot of these jurisdictions. So thank you for your hard work that you're doing. We still have work to do, but we need to be able to come up with realistic and humanitarian solutions so that those that really need access won't be victimized.
Right. And I'll also jump in and say that a part of the policing part, and I do agree, we need to do a panel discussion on policing on transit, because that's, we could go for hours on that. We can go for hours on that. And it is taxing because you want to keep the system safe, but this over emphasizing of security theater, we've already seen it in the airport, and it's hell on wheels. We don't want that to get into a system that's failing as well. And you know, as much as we do talk about wanting to uphold transit and wanting to have more transit on, the last thing we want is to have more eyes on transit from everybody, and especially the folks who don't agree with transit, wanting to point out one or two things that happens on the system and say, hey, look, they're acting up on transit. We shouldn't have this. So I think there's a through line that we should have, and we should definitely continue that conversation so that we can come up with a strategy on how to do this, because for what's happening in DC, New York, and especially Boston, because Boston, I think I told months ago, like they're trying to take away your driver's license if you have too many things with fare evasion. So, you know, it's just these kind of, yeah.
When you're done, I have one more quick thing.
Gotcha. Like, so they're not playing fair with this. And especially, you know, we have to think about young folks, because like, yeah, a lot of this language is confusing, and unless you're writing the language, you're not going to understand it. So I think that's where also the education piece has to come in, of saying that, hey, if you're going to come on, you need to conduct yourselves. Don't act, it's not necessarily respectability politics, but you can't come on a bus acting a fool. You can't come on a train acting a fool, because you want to be able to respect the ride, because it's a privilege. It's a privilege to come on this. You're paying to come on, so it's a privilege, and you don't want to lose it. But we also have to educate folks on the importance of fair fares, and that if you are going to take account of this, you need to make sure that you're not ruining it for the next person who absolutely and badly needs it. Go ahead, Sherry.
The one thing I want to say is that I just lost my train of thought. I had one more thing to say. Okay. Policymakers should be required to ride transit at least once a quarter. Otherwise, I believe they are out of touch. They don't understand. I remember when I worked at the state capitol, and Brandon Beach was the chair of transportation. The MARTOC committee, which was the oversight at the state capitol for our transit system, MARTA here, there were only 3 people, I think, out of 14 serving on the committee that actually used transit on a regular basis. And I think the other ones never rode it. Might have ridden it once to the airport or something of that nature, which is ridiculous. And I do have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. I have another call, but I also want to report on the, and I'm real serious about that. That needs to be a requirement, because we don't need people making policy decisions and they have no clue about what is going on. So how can you really make policy when you are not there firsthand in the trenches, and you see, touch, and feel, have an idea of what the where there are opportunities, as well as when there are things that really need to be addressed. But if you don't see it and you're just, getting news clips, that is unacceptable. So that's my rant on that. But Bakari, I sent you a article that was done here in Atlanta. The 183 bus that's in Southwest Atlanta, residents complain that the street is too narrow for the bus. And I'm sure that happens periodically. It is unfortunate. However, that's why I caution people when they're talking about transit in Atlanta, don't compare us to Phoenix. I lived there when light rail was being built. Don't compare us to LA, that has much wider streets as does Phoenix. Nice wide streets with nice wide sidewalks. We don't have that here. We have a lot of hilly terrain. Our topography is hilly and curvy and dangerous. And so a lot of the streets are just not wide enough. And then somebody made the comment, oh, you should just widen the streets. Well, yeah, you're going to take people's property, right? I don't think so. And even when you go and knock on neighbors' doors, it could be a street that's 3 or 4 miles long. And if, 10 people or 12 people, you can't get a hold of them, or they say no, that messes up the, even if they do sit far off the street, it becomes problematic. So what they decided to do, Bakari, on Niski Lake, they decided to, when people get off the bus on that narrow street, because the bus is too wide for the street. People have been very cautious in allowing the bus to pass, but that's not the only street. That's just the one they're complaining about. So we have to be real careful that other conversations don't start, because these narrow streets, while many of them may not have a lot of riders, the riders that do live on these streets are transit dependent. They don't have access to cars, don't own a car. So we need to figure out how to handle that. And when I lived in Phoenix, and what they did in Scottsdale, which is nicknamed Scottsdale, what they did when those areas don't want buses on their streets, period, for no reason, and we know why they don't want buses in their neighborhood. But what they would do, though, the businesses would just send circulars and the high-end neighborhoods, they had shuttles in their neighborhoods. In Awatuki had a shuttle to get the people around to the grocery stores and stuff. In Chicago, they had shuttles to get people to the grocery store and back to their high-rise complex. So they should have a transit stop that's more than just a bus stop and a bench. It should be like a transit center so that when it's pouring down rain, people can wait for their Uber or whatever ride they're getting. So what MARTA has proposed and what they're doing in the short term is that when the bus gets to that corner, instead of turning on the narrow street, Niskilade, the bus will actually stop there, and they're providing, I think $1 Uber rides or free Uber Lyft rides. And to me, that is a short-term solution. I think the long-term solution, and I do have a call today at 4, where we're going to be talking with some metro planners about what the long-term solution would be for this route and for other routes where people are gonna, because we opening up Pandora's box to what to do. And I think the solution is a circular with a protective place for people to get off the bus, whether it's cold, whether it's very hot, but we don't want them to get drenched when it's raining for sure. So if you can, forward that the folks so they can see it. And if I get any other articles, and if any of you guys on this call have any information or article about what happens when buses have to be rerouted, because this is definitely a safety issue. No one has died or been seriously injured, thank goodness, but we don't want that to happen before a solution comes up. And I'm sure there's best practices somewhere. And I believe that a shuttle or / a circular could handle that piece and just feed into the main bus. But in my travels overseas, specifically in Cuba, they have buses that are, they are very, extremely narrow. But then some SUVs are too wide for the lanes these days. If you really think about it, the UPS truck, the FedEx truck, the school bus, oftentimes it's not just a MARTA bus. There are a lot of vehicles that are actually too wide for some of our neighborhood streets where the bus goes. And of course, here in Atlanta, on the north side of town, in the suburbs, the bus doesn't even go down neighborhood streets. All the buses actually stay on the main thoroughfares. They don't go into neighborhoods. But of course,
Right.
in the city, it's not like that because there's so many people that don't have access to cars. So
Right. And a little bit more context to that. This is a bus that's been there since the 80s. So I think it's a little bit related to MARTA in the bus network redesign of wanting to go more towards a ridership level than a coverage level. So that may be the whole point of why they're trying to narrow it down and why they're using the narrow definition, even though when I lived in Philly.
No. The residents actually bought this to MARTA.
Gotcha.
Okay? Residents actually bought this to MARTA because of some close calls.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
Well, we'll see what comes of that. Akshay, you had a comment?
Yeah, just I wanted to just share one thing because I know it just touches on a few of the earlier points, not exactly the kind of streetscape and service issue we were just hearing about. But when I was at ATU in 2018 and 19, and we talked to a lot of our operators at the time, and especially for bus operators. I know it's different than trains and point of collection for fares, but for bus operators, the fact remains that as soon as you're in the position of having to collect a fare, your safety is compromised relative to anything that you were doing where you were just driving your bus. We, especially if there's fare increases, we've seen attacks on drivers. That is the kind of concentrated moment that is like the nexus of when attacks on drivers goes up, is because now they're having to collect a fare from someone for even higher amount. Consistently, if you talk to drivers about it, like transit police are not going to show up in time for that. They're not going to make it in any kind of reasonable response time for that kind of a scenario. I would have drivers laugh when asked that question, like, transit police actually make it so that you can be safer in your job. Nobody says yes. But I think more importantly, it's that we're also forcing drivers to collect these fares, and it degrades the service. We were talking about the BRT on Euclid is funny because they got rid of proof of payment after a judge said no more like random stops and searches of transit police on our BRT. So our agency just went ahead and said, instead, we'll make everybody just board like it's a normal regular fare bus. So now you've got extra double long line for people getting on a BRT vehicle, forced to go no all-door boarding, no proof of payment service. They're going on an even slower line than we were in the days of the 6th before it was BRT. So the need to police our transit into obsolescence is still very much on, and it doesn't make our operators safer when it's shittier service. Sorry, but when it's worse service, it ends up stoking that much more of the social tension, that dynamic. So I think it's just important that we meet riders, meet workers where they're at, because and understand like systematically what's going to do it, because these conversations are necessary, but and obviously we're no safer than we were in the years past in general, but like that's just the piece that I had to say on that. Thanks.
Absolutely. And definitely we could really put this on. So if anyone's interested in doing a panel on policing on transit, let's do it. But we could absolutely plan it today. But I wanted to do some housekeeping for a couple of events that are going on really quickly. Thank you all for joining us. Like I said, we're going to continue to do more of these office hours once a month, usually on every fourth Friday of the month. At our usual time at noon Eastern Standard Time. So definitely join us, and let me know if you don't have the calendar invite for it. Also, I wanted to let you all know about a project that LNS is currently working on with the Railroad Workers United. So since 2012, they've been working on a campaign to have public ownership of railroads. And definitely now, after all of the derailments that have been happening on a lot of these railroads, like in East Palestine, the one in the Mojave Desert, the one in West Virginia not too long ago. But this actually has been alerted based off of what's happened in the past. Like there was a huge derailment in San Bernardino back in 1989 that had a lot of really dangerous health risks for the residents in the neighborhood who were residents of color. So what we've actually done is we've joined them in their campaign, and we wanted to do a transportation webinar. So essentially what this would be is it will be a series of webinars with different transportation topics like freight, transit. We're going to talk about accessibility. We're going to talk about ports and greening the ports. We're going to talk about green locomotives, and we're going to talk about some solutions that we can do as far as strategies for this. So if you'd like to learn more about this, I'm going to put the information in the chat. I'll also put it into the emails, into the email listserv. So definitely look out for that. And also, if you'd like to put your organization to support this, I'll also put that link into the chat as well. If you'd like to sign on with their support. They're looking for everyone from EJ groups to railroad labor unions to transit advocates, everybody under the sun. So if you know someone who would love to support this effort, please let them know, because we've seen how the Class 1 railroads do not want to advocate for anything expansion of passenger rail or electrification, which is badly needed in this nation. So definitely help us out. I've been on one of the panels with United Electrical a couple of days ago. a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I had a really wonderful conversation with them and with Solutionary Rail moving forward and a lot of other groups. So they're all on board and we want to get them on board, especially reaching out to Sierra Club, NAACP, and a lot of other folks, which I got a meeting with NAACP on Monday. And I just met with Sierra Club, Southern California yesterday, and we had a good meeting with them. So yes, if you'd love to sign on with that, please check the links into the chat. I'll also email them out to you all. We really want to make this big, and we're looking to do our first webinar in June. Don't hold us to that because we still got to get planning and secure speakers. So if there's any of you that would love to speak on this topic, or if you know someone that would love to speak on the topic of transit as far as passenger rail, I know we've had a lot of folks here who have talked about their campaigns with that. But definitely let us know and let me know so that we can put you on board. That's first. Second, like I said before, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be putting a lot of content on there. We're also going to be putting the webinar series on our YouTube channel. So definitely look out for that. Also, we are looking for op-eds. If anyone has an op-ed that they have written for any publication, or if you've had any talking points like we've had today that you'd like to get out to the public, please let us know and send it along to me, and we can put it into our LNS newsletter. They've been expressing a lot more interest in transit and transportation, so we'd definitely like to get your voices up and held. Also, TransitCon is back. So if you haven't heard of TransitCon, it is an unconference with a diverse lineup of speakers, including Alicia Trost, the Chief Communications Officer for BART, as well as lovely folks like you all to just talk about sessions on transportation and urbanism. So if you'd like to join that event, I will also put the link into the chat. It will be this Sunday, April 30th from 11:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Please join us. I will be there. Like I spoke at the first one back in 2021. So it was really fun. It was really good to meet different organizers from around the country and just kind of talk about different transit topics. So this is really good for folks to really just try to get their ideas on. So yeah, if you'd like to join that, please join that. It is free, but please donate to them because they're doing really great work to put programs on like that. Last thing to report is LNS is also working on a transit equity listening project. And this is based off of the Young Worker Listening Project that we currently have within LNS, but we wanted to put a focus on transit and linking up transit operators with riders and trying to get them to see each other's worlds, to see where we can go with organizing efforts from both sides of it. So I know there's been a lot of interest within the Transit Equity Network. I know Sheila's mentioned about doing a survey for drivers. So we wanted to do you one better. We wanted to create a whole space for both drivers and riders, and not even just drivers, like people that work at the transit agency. So this could be anybody from transit to the custodial staff to the planners to anybody, because we want to be able to open this up because, as we mentioned before, and has been mentioned before on this call and other calls, a lot of people who are on these boards and working in these transit agencies know almost nothing about what's going on right on the ground. So we wanted to be able to create this space to open it up for these different groups to talk, the people that actually ride the system and the people who are in charge of making the system. So look out for more of that. We're also looking for groups to pilot in different cities. So we talked to Pittsburgh for Public Transit. We talked to No Bus Cuts Denton, and we've talked to a group out in the Bay Area who's kind of piloted this already. So if you have any cities that you'd like to pilot this in, please let us know so that we could come to your city and see where we can link in with some folks. But yeah, any questions or comments on any of that? I know that was a lot.
I dropped in the chat, but I have been in touch with some folks in Chicago who are really excited, especially having some really good conversations with their ATU members. their contract is up at the end of the year, and I know some of our local partners on the ground with Jobs with Justice have started at least a social media account. If folks want to, I can drop the link, but it's called Chicago Transit Justice Alliance, and I believe that their main Transit Justice Coalition, and I'm sorry, but their main emphasis this year is going to be on helping secure a contract with the Amalgamated Transit Union so that they're not dealing with poverty level wages for employees of their transit agency. And that's just something that if we want to, like other people on the call had said, fill in, make sure we're getting the service that we pay for, that we deserve, that everyone deserves. Like, we need people working these agencies that are attracted and retained, and feel like they're being taken care of, not struggling to pay rent for their family. So yeah, that's all from me, but excited for Chicago on that.
Absolutely. And we definitely like to flag it to Chicago, because now that we got a lot of folks in Chicago. So and that's definitely going to be good, given they possibly will be getting an extension of the red line. So we want to make sure that good projects are going on like that, and we're getting a lot of the good folks at the ATU and other transit unions on board with that. So thank you, Yakshay. Anything else?
Yeah, and I put this in the chat as well. I would love to connect with you about the op-eds idea, because it's also something we've started to talk about internally in IPS, about having more, because we have these platforms, these two platforms. One is called Other Words, that is mostly short op-eds that go out to small town and rural newspapers. And then we have this platform called inequality.org that's about issues of social and economic inequality writ large. And it tends to be a little more technical and policy heavy, but not essentially so. I mean, it has other kinds of content as well. But we've been talking about more transit-related content, especially written by people on the front lines, people who are impacted riders, etc., or impacted workers. So yeah, let's definitely connect about that.
Absolutely, I would love to do. Anything else for we go into some pictures? Wonderful. Well, like I said, I was on vacation, so I wanted to show y'all some pictures from my travels. And this will kind of get into some like best practices of transit, what things to advocate for, what things not to advocate for. So first thing I wanted to mention was that it was so much cheaper taking Mark and / Uber to the airport versus just taking an Uber straight to the airport. They wanted $30 for the airport. With Mark and Uber, $16. So, and as you can see, having an empty train is not necessarily a bad thing, especially at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I flew into Oakland, and I was floored by, like, once I got to the front door, that BART was just right there. And they showed you, like, different ways to pay, and also just different ways to get around the system as far as the map. Now, what I wanted to note is that it was so expensive to get from the airport back to the regular thing. And like my friend who lives in the Bay Area told me that, yeah, they built this whole connector from the BART line, which is, if you're not familiar, it's the heavy rail line that runs between the East Bay and San Francisco. $6 to get from the airport to the rest of the system, which was wild. But hey, that's something like with advocacy, like you've got to know what works best for you. They built this nice shiny connector with all glass and like all of this. I'm like, listen, people just need a connector. They don't need all this. If you had a bus that ran frequently, that's much better than having this nice shiny portal bringing folks over. So, but I was also glad that you could pay for your phone, just like Omni, which Sarah mentioned earlier. All you had to do was just, if you have like Apple Pay or Google Pay, you literally just tap onto the gate and it lets you in. So I thought that was cool. I got on BART, and now it was interesting to see, like, and I remember like going around Ramada, like you've seen, they've now started doing like these 8-car trains. Same thing with BART, like they have like these long platforms for a lot of communities because like DC and San Francisco, they have a large transit mode share of commuters. So they've had to put in for a lot of these large crowds. So it was good seeing like these large, long trains. There's the inside of one of the older trains. And you can see they're also like a strap hanger culture as well. I love this because it really showed the power of wayfinding and the power of just getting information as far as real time. This was at Montgomery Station for BART, and they showed like all of the different trains and the different vehicles that were coming in and just how long they were coming in. So I really like that because you give like a lot of information immediately. Now this is confusing. Now, if you're not familiar with the stations in San Francisco, a lot of them along Market Street are multi-level. So you'll have BART on one level, then you'll have Muni, which is a light rail system on the second level. So this is confusing because once you got out of this, you weren't sure where to go. So that's something that they could work on, and especially over here with this empty ad space, this is something that they could possibly use for wayfinding as well. And I know too much wayfinding is too much, but not enough is also confusing, especially as somebody who's not from here. And this is a video I took along Market Street. If y'all also have known, they restricted Market Street to just alternative transportation. So buses, streetcars, bikes, etc. So it was good. I don't know if this video is gonna play, but it was good to see like it's empty. And I think that's good to establish this in every city, of establishing some kind of transit mall. Denver has one, Portland has one, which I didn't see it really. But it was good to see this because you could see the power of just having pedestrians and transit vehicles on here. So I don't know if it's gonna play, but I'll have pictures. I also went to the Salesforce Transit Center, which is probably one of the biggest and largest bus shelters that I've ever seen. It was nice because you saw every single bus that goes throughout the Bay Area pretty much. You had the Transbay buses, which are buses that goes across the San Francisco Bay over to the East Bay. You also had wayfinding as well, so you saw which buses left and from what platform. They also had a map full of the transit stops that were nearby. So if you see the transit center here, it's about a 5-minute walk from both the Montgomery and the Embarcadero stations, which were the last 2 stations before you go over the Bay. But yeah, it was good to see all of this just like put into perspective. Now this is the top of the transit center, and it was beautiful. Like they had like all of this landscaping. There was even like a water fountain, which like kind of coincided with the buses coming along. So like if a bus was coming along, you saw this water just shoot up. So you could tell they spent a lot of money on this, and it was almost to the point of like, is this a little too much? But you can see it's beautiful. And then they also built this gondola, which I thought was pointless, but whatever. But you can see below, like San Francisco has a lot of bus-only lanes. They also have a lot of trolley buses, which I was absolutely amazed with, is that they're a city that kept with trolley buses. We talked about zero emission buses, and I think that's really good to just kind of look at, because it's a precursor to light rail. Like if it does well, you could add more and faster vehicles. But yeah, this was the underbelly of the transit center, which when I tell you this transit center went on for blocks. This was like the big screen at the beginning where you could just kind of see and see what buses were coming where. And this is another video which I don't think is going to play because my internet is wild. But this is Market Street. So you saw bus here, bus here, bus here. Then this is you have bike lanes here, and then you also have the streetcar lanes in the middle. So it was a transit paradise. You saw nothing but transit everywhere and just pedestrians walking about. And you also had bike share on the side of it. And then here's one of the streetcars along there as well. Another thing, I don't like these long get it, but I don't like these long corridors. It seems like it took forever to get from here to my destination, which was the Central Subway. So I did get to ride the new Central Subway, and it was really nice. So for those who aren't familiar, San Francisco recently opened like one of their first new subways in over 50 years, which connects Chinatown to where the Caltrain, which is their commuter rail, where it ends, and where the T line, which is what connects it into, which goes into the southern part of San Francisco. So they started service not too long ago. We actually had 350 Bay Area that did a session during the Chinese New Year on Transit Equity Day. So, but it was beautiful. You could tell they spent a lot of money on this one as well. But again, these long corridors, I don't know why they needed those, but I get it. So here's the platform for them. Now the headwinds are okay, but given the fact this only has like 4 stations, I can see why. But here's the inside of the stations. Sherry will be upset to know these cars look exactly like the streetcars in Atlanta and exactly like the ones on 8th Street in DC, but they're tunneled. Don't let anybody tell you that these can't be tunneled. They can. More wayfinding. So essentially, this is all of the heavy rail, all of the rail, excuse me, in San Francisco. Now, mind you, San Francisco is about 7 miles by 7 miles, so it's not that big. So you can see how much rail that they have as far as all of this city. Like, that's pretty impressive, and especially like with this new addition right here, that really makes a huge connection, and especially since they moved the Warriors to San Francisco. So now this gives like a 1-seat ride for folks who are connecting in. There's another station. I also got to see the Van Ness Bus Rapid Transit line. Now, this is a great example of bus rapid transit and where it should be, in the center of the street. Look how like the lanes are literally in the center of the street and you have traffic on both sides of it. And here's an example of a bus going down it. It's a electric trolley bus as well. But you see they put medians in to prevent people from going in these lanes. And then you see you have the station, the stops on the side of it. So you have the shelters where people could wait. And then you have both these buses, but it's just that easy. And you see people getting off of the bus and, traffic right here. So it was really nice. And like I said, I really got a kick of seeing all of these trolley buses everywhere. Like it was great. Here's another point of Market Street where you have a lot of the trolley buses and streetcars along each other. I also went to Bend, Oregon, which is a little small town where desert meets the mountains meets the forest. Now, they also have a fare-free system. Now, it's not a big system, but it works, and especially for the population, which it is a college town. So right by my hotel, which was over here, there was this stop, which I thought was really well thought out. Now, there could be some upgrades to it, but for what it was, because over here was a college dorm student center, it was good because you had these tactiles. So like if there was anybody that needed ADA accessibility, that you could easily get this. There was a curb cut, so where the buses could get off the street and let traffic pass through, which is touch and go with what people think about that, but I think it's really useful. They even had the service which it serves to, like you could park your bike here, you could have buses here, and there's also a carpool pickup. So they really did a good job with just kind of letting you know what's here and what you could use this for. And they also put bike racks in it, which I thought was really wonderful. And another thing that I wanted to point out with these bus stops, which you'll see later, I love that they did not put glass in this. I can't stand when people put glass in these bus stops because that makes it easy for people to destroy it. This is some kind of plaster. I like it. Now, I wish they could have extended this out a little bit more, because what you'll also notice about Oregon is that it rains a lot. So I wish they could have covered this a little bit more, but it works. And then they'll tell you where it goes as well, and alerts with it. So this was nice. And this was on the day it snowed, which was last week. I couldn't believe it. We also went to Eugene, Oregon, which also has a bus rapid transit line known as the EMX. And it connects, it runs east-west, and it connects West Eugene to the University of Oregon campus in East Eugene. So here's an example of one of the bus lanes, which I didn't necessarily like this because they also use it as a turn lane, which they do that same thing here in Baltimore. But as you can see, the difference between this and like a regular bus is they have raised platforms, so they could actually pull in and just open it up. So people using a wheelchair could easily just go on and they don't have to like lower the bus down. They also have off board fare payments, so you can pay before you get on. They have wayfinding. They also have shelter. So it's an upgraded bus stop, essentially. Here's another view of the bus, and you also see they have updated real-time arrival information, which was good. Here was the inside of the bus. As you can see, like, you can't see like really, but you could easily roll on the bus if possible. Here's one of the stations over by University of Oregon, but here's a better view of that. You could see like you could easily just roll off of the bus, and then above there some wayfinding information. They also had bike racks where you could lock your bike up. And notice the green platforms that the buses can go through. This is a good example of making it beautiful, and just kind of setting this precedent that, hey, this is for the buses. But especially like what they did in San Francisco, where you saw the red lanes with it. Like it just kind of gives more of a, hey, this is for buses. Okay, here's another view of that. And you can see this also center lane. Now this goes between center lane and then curb lane. I don't like as well. Like if y'all want to do it, like do it uniformly. But here's one. There's one part of this system that does single track. Mixed feelings about that as well. But here's where it's along the curb line as well. I love Eugene because they had really great wayfinding, and they also included the bus rapid transit line and how far it would take to get to one part of it to the other. And I really like that. Wayfinding is really important, and especially if you have a large amount of people who are tourists. But also make your stops pretty. Make them fun to sit at. As well as with litter. Litter is a big issue in a lot of places. So giving people receptacles to put the trash up will also help keep it clean. And my last stop was in Portland, Oregon. Y'all haven't been to Portland. Portland's changed a little bit. And I joked that downtown Portland kind of looked like downtown Baltimore. No shade on them, but they also have a really extensive light rail system. And a lot of mixture of light rail with buses, which I do like. We can't just assume that light rail only needs a separate infrastructure. If you could also use it for buses as well, that would be great if you're trying to implement electric trolley buses as well. Now, here's the bad part I talked about a while ago. Don't use glass for these things because it's easy for somebody to destroy this, and especially since glass is holding this up. But I did like that they had real-time alerts, as well as with the name of the stop. That's also really helpful. They have the name of the stop, Southwest 6th and Oak, northbound. So people don't have any questions of, is this going northbound? Is this going to this place? It's right here. It's right here on the screen. And they also have real-time arrival information, which is also really helpful. And you wouldn't think about this for bus, but again, like if you do want to upgrade your bus system, this is a really great amenity to have, so you have people that stay in the know with what's going on with their system. So if there's delays or how long before you have to think about, can I go get a cup of coffee, or can I go get a croissant or anything? Now, they had a huge surface disruption, which literally cut off half their system in half. This is another warning for advocacy work. Please make sure if you're proposing any new rail lines that they're all not on one throughput. And this was their problem. And I had a friend who lived on the Green Line down here, and you see down here, there was 20-minute service on the Green Line, as well as every one of these other lines. Make sure that if you're doing something like this, where you're getting new rail lines, make sure it's on separate rights of way. Don't put all your lines on one throughput. That was the same thing with San Francisco as well, because like 4 of those lines go through one tunnel, and they're trying to build another tunnel to go into that the Salesforce Transit Tower that I told you about. Make sure it makes sense, in a sense to where if you have service alerts like this, or if you have something that happens on the station, that all of your lines are not compromised. Another thing I liked about Portland was that the transit was in your face. Like, even like me and my friend were eating at this eating brunch at this restaurant, and we just saw the buses right there. So it made it easy for folks to want to ride transit, because it was right there in front of your face. Like, you saw everything. You saw the buses pull up every 5 minutes. You saw the real-time arrival information. So you could almost wonder in Google from your table, like, hey, can I take this bus over here to Washington Square? So it was easy because it was right there in front of you. I also liked that they had transit malls here, like here on Oak Street, where you had the Max light rail run through, and it was literally just that. And here's Pioneer Square. It's literally a square where they do a lot of events, but along two or three of those streets, they have light rail running through. And they have these signs that also tell you where you are, as well as what direction it goes to, which is really helpful. And then you have kind of a share of traffic as well. So you have like a bus lane here, a light rail line here, and then you have regular traffic here. So it really made sense of just kind of delineating who uses what lane, which is really helpful. And here's another view of that as well. And here's more streets of that. And then when I flew back into Dulles, which I don't normally do, but I was surprised of how many guide signs they had for Metro. Like, I think that was, and that's one thing we didn't mention, Bossoff. Shout out to WMATA for the Silver Line extension. That was really big for them. And I think they really advertised it well, because you saw it everywhere. You couldn't be anywhere within the WMATA system and not see something for the Silver Line extension. So kudos to them, and also kudos for Dulles for also sharing that in, because once you got out there, you saw every single sign for Metro. So it's like they want you to take Metro. I wish other airports would do this, but I saw signs there, I saw signs there, like it was everywhere. Like they told you how to get to this thing, and they wouldn't stop. Like, because I remember flying into O'Hare and wondering, how do I get to the train? Dulles made it easy. And it's that partnership that you really want with your transit agency and something like an airport, or something like a stadium, or anything like that, to really collaborate with that. But I really like that. Now, I didn't like the fact that I had such a long haul, because it took me 3 hours to get back to Baltimore, but hey. Yellow Line's also opening up next month, so that's also going to be a fanfare, so I can get to Nashville and not have to go way out there, because it takes an hour to get from Dulles to DC. So if you're willing to make that, or if you live out there, which is a beautiful area, absolutely. But
this was
yeah,
a
that's
fascinating presentation, Bakari. It was great
Thank you.
to see all those transit systems. And, you know, it also shows that if you actually do the work for some good planning, you get some good results.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good best practices out in the West Coast. Like most folks don't think of it, because they always want to look at like the big cities, but a lot of these small towns could throw you for a loop too. Like, I was surprised with Bend, which, if y'all don't know Bend, it's the last remaining Blockbuster store is there in Bend, which is also fun to go to. But it was good that they had a free transit system, and it was also a tourist town as well. Like, it's basically the gateway to like a lot of the sports that you do, like on the ski slopes and like snowboarding. So it's the gateway to a lot of outdoor sports in Oregon. So it was good to see how they did all of this, and like their wayfinding. Like, it was really good to look at that, and especially compared to a lot of the other bigger cities that I saw. So yeah, like, if y'all haven't been out there, please go. It's beautiful. don't necessarily go in the spring, and especially the early spring, because it's still winter. Like I ran into a lot of snow
Mm.
and rain. I had to get a rain jacket because I've never gotten one, but yeah, it was good. So yeah, definite. I might go to Seattle and Vancouver next year.
Mm.
As my friend and I have talked about that. Seattle I've been to, and I've saw same thing with like the trolley buses like all going along this huge transit mall. And they've also got a lot of great improvements that they're trying to work on in Seattle. Like they're trying to build a couple of new light rail lines. And hopefully they don't make the wrong decision, because that's another city that should have just tunneled, but hey. And I really do want to see Vancouver, because I've heard nothing but good things about their system as well. So
Mm. Mhm.
coming soon, we'll see. But
Yeah.
anything else for we adjourn?
Yeah, it's fine. This was a great call.
Absolutely. But yeah, I'll definitely put everything else in the email about all the events that are going on, TransitCon, the stuff that we're working on with the Railroad Workers United. And we'll also open it up for the Rapid Rider Listening Project, as well as with the op-eds. Definitely like to get IPS and other groups onto doing op-eds, but if there's nothing else, thank you all for joining. For those who are watching us, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like all our videos, comment, share these videos as well. We've also got a lot of great content from other folks within the network. Jeanette McClellan from Albuquerque is also recording a lot of the stuff that they're seeing out in Albuquerque. So I think there's a lot of great content, as well as with PIST, we've got a lot of videos from there. And others. So if y'all have any videos that y'all would like to share throughout the network, let us know. We can put them on playlist. We can have it up for people to watch. But if nothing else, thank you all so much. And until next time, thank you all for joining.